Okay, Angela, so you heard us at the beginning of the show.
I did.
We were talking about expectations.
Yes.
And I know that you have certain things planned for today, but whether we get to it or not, I want you to help us figure out how to have the expectations that are going to help our children to succeed.
Expectation, to me, is just another word for intention. And when we're intentional about things, we have certain expectations of what's going to be happening. And we usually live up to those expectations, whether low or high. And especially with children, their perceptions of who's in charge has a lot to do with our expectations of them. And when I was hearing about, talking about the school or whatever, and in our homes, it's so important that their perceptions are tied in with the expectations about what's expected of them. And when we have high expectations, the perceptions of who's in charge increases and gives us more control as parents. And I wanted to talk a lot about that today in terms of, have you sat down with your kids lately and told them what you expect of them? And a lot of times we get so busy, just doing all the little things that we need to do every day that we forget to kind of take some time. And I think especially at this time of the year when we're, going back to school, and I don't know about your house, but my house gets pretty wild in the summer.
Yes, very wild.
We have some pretty good structure in the school year, and then in the summer I have all these great plans. We're going to do this reading, and we're going to have this little schedule, and by the end of the summer, it's woo, everything's just sort of free form. And I have to be my own life coach, like I say, okay, I know this stuff, I got to get back. But what I think is a great thing to do before school starts is to sit down with your kids and tell them what you expect. What are we going to expect this year? I expect that you're going to get your homework done, and I expect that you're going to, only watch this much TV a day. And, I expect that we're going to, have family gathering time. We're going to eat at a certain time or whatever. Those are all intentions that will help organize and structure our lives as we get back into more of a structured time of the year.
And that seems simple, but it's so powerful.
Yes.
Sometimes we think that we need these big, huge, amazing solutions, but it's the little things like this. And I think, at least in my home, I find that when I sit down with my children and I tell them what my expectations are, like you're saying, I never thought about it, but that's what I do. Right. And I always try to get across to them that I'm doing this because of my love for them, because of the fact that I want them to be happy and to have the very best life possible, and so I need to do my part.
Yes, and that is our part as parents, is to kind of, we can just kind of willy-nilly go along, but it's our job to kind of set the direction of where we want our families to go. So I think it's a good time of the year to kind of sit down and say, okay, are my kids watching too much TV? What are the things that are driving me crazy? What are the behaviors that are driving me crazy? How do they affect me? Because I think it's important when you sit down to say, when I have to ask you 20 times to turn off the TV, it makes me nuts. And I bet it makes you nuts too. We're all going nuts here. So from now on, this is what's going to happen. This is what I expect, and I expect you to do this. And children respond so well to it. This is a tool that I have learned over the years, and we'll talk a little bit more about it in detail in the next segment.
Yeah. All right, now I had a huge question for you. Now, as you know, I'm a stepmom, and the biological mother and I have different parenting styles, and we had a teacher last year who expected a lot out of our children. Now, how do you combat that, with different parenting styles and a very expectant teacher? What do you do?
The really only thing you can do in a blended family is control what's happening in your home. And you can say, well, that's fine when you're over there. I know Dad lets you play video games all day, but when you're in our home, this is what's expected of you, and this is what needs to happen. And really, that's the only thing that you can do. And hopefully the child comes with their own batteries after a certain time. Suzuki says if you practice something, you know, it's like 7,000 times. It's some outrageous number. But, you know, I like the 21-day thing better. It sounds better. Yeah. If you do something for 21 days, it starts to become a habit. And and that's what builds self-confidence in children, is when they start to do hard things, and then they start to get their own reward from it. Hopefully, if you're practicing good things at your home and you're having a good rhythm of life in your home, what she'll do is she'll want to stay in that rhythm when she goes to the other parent's home and say, Mom, you know, Mom or Dad, I really want to do this tonight, because I like it when my teacher rewards me for getting my homework done. Mm. So see, you can enforce that and help them get into their own rhythm of life. Neat. And that's really what we want to do anyway. We want them to come with their own batteries.
That's great. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Now can we get a little bit more specific about what you were saying about, you know, structuring for the school year? Yeah. Give us some specific steps.
Now, you know, everyone that knows me knows I'm not a perfect parent, and the reason I am a life coach is because I've had to find so many resources for myself. and one of the great tools that I found is something called scripting, and I love it. And it doesn't take very long, but it does take some intentional time to sit down. And what you do is you sit down, and so like at the end of the summer, you could sit down and say, okay, what are these behaviors that are going on that are going to conflict with school? You know, we're watching too much TV. I can't get my daughter off the phone. I'm, you know, I'm not being able, they're not listening to me. I have to ask 3 or 4 times for something to happen. Mm-hmm. So when you're not in a confrontational situation, you do this ahead of time. You need to sit down, take some time to decide what it is that you want changed. And then, and decide ahead of time that you're going to sit down.
Even, right?
Yes, you should write it down. In fact, I call this scripting, because you want to give your child a script of expectations about what's going to be happening. So they know exactly what's going to happen and how you're going to react. And so there's no surprises. But you want to do it in a calm situation. So you write it all down, and then you call the child in and you say, you know, and what you want to do when you write it down is you want to be specific about how the behavior affects you. You know, when I ask you 3 or 4 times to do something, I feel really disrespected. And I'm sure you don't like me nagging at you, you know, kind of like we said in the first segment. Mm. And so, you know, kind of include their feelings in there too. But you kind of have a discussion so it's not so defensive and confrontational. And then you basically say, from now on, this is what's going to happen. And you need to write down and decide what these consequences are ahead of time. In other words, when you're playing the video game and I ask you 2 times, then I'm going to come over and I'm going to unplug the video game. Oh. Whether or not it makes you angry, whether or not it ruins your game, whether or not anything, this is what is going to happen. And then you have the child parrot back to you what the expectation is. You know, tell me what I just said. Well, when I play my video game and you ask me the second time, you're going to unplug my game. And you make an agreement about what is going to happen. And that, number one, puts you in a position of authority with your child to say, this is what's happening in this house, and this is what I'm going to do about it. And this is what I expect from you. And if you don't, you're going to lose your video game. You're going to go to your room, you know, or if you're obnoxious in the store, I'm going to take you out. I mean, you can do it for so many things. And it's such a fabulous tool.
And the key is enforcing it.
Yes, and that's the last step, is you've got to follow through. You've got to really make a commitment to when that happens, you've got to unplug the video game. Even if they scream, we care way too much about kids' feelings. You know, it's harder to change kids' attitudes than it is to change their behavior. Focus on the behavior that you want changed, and don't worry about whether they like it or not. They have a choice, and just say, well, you have a choice to like it or not like it. But this is what is going to happen, because you're going to focus on the behavior. Because when they start doing better behaviors, their attitudes are going to follow, because they're going to feel better. We all feel better when we have good behavior.
That's true.
So scripting is a great thing, and we have the formula for scripting on the website on my section today. Yes. So if you didn't get that all down, go to the website and download it. It's a fabulous tool, and it's helped me so much, especially when you're feeling so out of control.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Amazing.
Appreciate you.
Doesn't she make you feel like you're actually doing some things right?
That's right.
And some things wrong. But some things right. Makes you feel like a better parent than you think you are. All right. Well, thank you so much again.
You're welcome.